Hi everyone and welcome to Mach 5. My name is Daryl and today we are going to be looking at a full flight gate-to-gate in the Boeing 737 CYYL mod in X-Plane 11 from Toronto to Montreal. Check out the link in the description to download your own Boeing 737 flight sim checklist. If you like what you see here today, please give this video a like and subscribe to the Mach 5 channel on YouTube or the Mach 5 page on Facebook so you don't miss out on any content. On the Mach 5 channel or Mach 5 page you can find all my video tutorials, guides, gameplay, and other reference material to help take your own flight sim experience to the next level. Thank you for watching and I hope you enjoy. Alright, so we just entered the aircraft and now we're going to get power on the airplane. Overhead panel here. Get the battery switch on. External power is available. We'll put that on. Since the aircraft is now powered up, we will put the IRS switches to nav. On DC, lights illuminate, extinguish, and the align lights illuminate. I'm going to throw the emergency exit light on and come down to program the FMS. I'll cancel the cautions for now. And I'm going to display system just to have the hydraulics up. We'll program the FMS. Nav data out of date. Okay. First thing I'll actually do is go to the ACARS and send off a request for an ATIS here in Toronto. While we're waiting for that, Boeing 737-800 with 26K engines, and I do know my database is a bit out of date. It's the U13 software version. We're departing out of Toronto and we'll take GPS position, a left GPS position, 4340.8 north, 07937.0 west. That looks pretty reasonable. So we'll use that to set the IRS position. Go to the route page, Toronto in the origin, and to Montreal, CYYZ-CYUL. Today I chose United Airlines Flight 551, and we'll be departing Toronto off runway. Let's see. Actually, let's see what the ATIS says. So, ACARS, ATIS. It says winds 160 degrees at 9 knots, and altimeter is 3020. So I'm actually going to set the altimeter right now. 3020. 3020 and 3020. Okay, 160 at 9, few at 1000, broken at 1900, overcast at 3500, temperature -1, and I'm using real world weathers turned on, and that's actually consistent with the weather in Toronto. So, next page just mentions sea level pressure. Basically, let's see, 160, so arguably we could depart off runway 23 would probably make the most sense, even though it's about 80 degrees off, just to give us a slight headwind for departure. So let's use runway
23 for departure. Not there. Next page, there it is, 23, and the departure sim brief had planned for us is the dead key for departure with the MIG-low transition. And this is a short flight, and the CYD departure here basically takes us straight into our arrival. So dead key for departure out to MIG-low, and then MIG-low is the start of the HABs for arrival into Montreal. So I'll go to the arrival page, I'll select the HABs. I got the HABs 3 here, a little out of date, but should all work out. HABs 3 with the MIG-low transition, and I'm going to guess based on the weather that's in my flight planning package from SimBrief, I'm going to say that we'll be able to use the ILS runway, actually let's make it 06 left, ILS 6 left. Check the legs page, see what that looks like. So it's got 237 to 1100 feet, then heading at 245 for vectors, and that's what the CYD says. And no discontinuities, everything seems to be in there, so that looks like it's all gonna work out for us. So I will head back to the route page. I'll activate and execute. Perfinit cost index is 5 reserves. Let's see, final reserve plus our alternate fuel gives us 2.6. Zero fuel weight is planning 60.8. Let's see what it says in our Avatab. Should be pretty close. Zero fuel weight 60.4. So let's set that 60.4 for a zero fuel weight. And planned fuel. Our gauges here. Looks like I didn't order up enough fuel. So let me fix that. We need, block fuel is 5.7. So let's order 5,800 kilos. That's more like it. 5.8. That's what we have, so we're not going to put anything in the planned fuel spot. And 66.2 is our gross weight, and our flight plan is saying they're estimating 66.3, so look at that's pretty close. At cruise altitude, it's a very short flight today, basically doing a departure right into an arrival. So let's put in our cruise altitude of flight level 290, and we'll put in our top of climb winds as well. In the flight log here shows top of climb winds 242 at 74, and the outside air temperature up at 270 is, sorry, up at 290, showing minus 50 degrees Celsius, and transition at 18,000. Execute that. And one limit page. I've just kind of been pretty much guessing what would work well. Using airports with mostly long runways, so there should really be no issue with field length for takeoff. So I'm just going to set, it was -1, put a slash in there, slash -1 off the ATIS, and I'll use a takeoff 2 for a reduced power takeoff, and it's going to give us a climb 2. That's a reduced power climb. And takeoff N1 setting should be 89.4, and that shows up right up here. Takeoff 2, 89.4. There's the little marks showing what the N1 reference setting is. Head back down to the takeoff page now. I'm going to use flaps 5 for departure and center of gravity. Takeoff center of gravity is 24.0. 24 even. That gives us 4.86 on the trim setting. So 4.86 looks good. I'm just going to take the V-speeds right from the FMS here. And like we said, that's based off of a gross weight of 66.2. That's runway 23, 11,106 feet available. Nice long runway. Next page, 1,000, 1,000, and 1,000. So at 1,000 feet, we'll accelerate and retract. 1,000 feet will set climb thrust. It's going to go to climb 2, and that's where we're going to accelerate and retract our flaps. So that's pretty good there. In the climb, we're going to go 250 knots up to 10,000 feet, and then we're going to accelerate to 286, transition to Mach 7.6. And cruise page shows flight level 290. Optimum cruise altitude would be 28.7. Yeah, flight level 287, so basically 290. And at our weight, we can make it up to flight level 380, although that might be a bit of a stretch. I don't think I'd go much higher than 370. Cruising at 288 knots or Mach 7.6, basically whichever is greater. And in the descent, it's going to target Mach 7.48, transition to 254, and at 10,000 feet, it's going to slow down to 240 knots. Check the prog page now, 292 nautical miles. My flight plan is showing 287, so that's pretty reasonable considering there's the vectors on the departure. You know, the flight planning software might account for that a little bit differently than the FMS, so that's where you get the slight distance differences. But you know, most flight plans should be within 10 to 20, even 30 nautical miles is usually pretty reasonable. And planning fuel overhead Montreal 4.0, and our flight plan shows us planning 3.4 overhead. So that's good. Okay, we've got now that we have the FMS all set up, what we will do is do our pre-flight scan. Start back up at the top here. Just verify that the IRSs are in the nav position. The align lights have extinguished, so the aligning process is complete. Come down here and just checking doing the full scan, making sure all the switches are in the correct position. All of the lights which are illuminated, which are supposed to be illuminated, are illuminated, and those that are supposed to be extinguished are extinguished. I'm going to get the APU started up here, so I'll put one of the fuel pumps on and hit the start button. Start switch, EGT is rising, so the APU is on its way up. Let's see, we are on ground power right now. It should give you an amperage here, but I usually keep it on APU gen. Fasten belts can go on once all the fueling is complete. APU is up and running now, so I'm going to put the APU generator on. and I believe in X-Plane 11 the ground crew will automatically disconnect the ground power. I'll throw the APU bleed on as well, and I'm going to put the packs into the auto position, and we have air conditioning now flowing throughout the aircraft. Flight level 290 and landing field elevation in Montreal. I'm gonna have to look that up. I think it's 150. I'll have a look on my approach charts here. Shows 118, so I'll make that 100, rounded to the nearest number. Really, the ignition can go to any position. I put it on the left for odd flight numbers and the right side for even flight numbers. It can even go to both. Logo and steady position lights on, and the overhead panel is set. Master caution came on, air conditioning, and that is this dual bleed light which comes on anytime the APU bleed is on and the engine bleeds are on. There's a limitation that you cannot, if the engines are running, you cannot apply more than idle thrust, so that little dual bleed light comes on to alert you that your engine bleeds and your APU bleed are both on at the same time. No big deal, it's normal in this configuration, so we'll just cancel that master caution. And already set the altimeter. I'm going to pre-select minimums for the arrival into Montreal just to reduce the workload once we're in flight, because this is such a short flight. On a longer flight, we could spend our time in the cruise phase setting up for the arrival. So ILS 06 left in Montreal. The Cat 1 minimums are, with all the runway lights available, 298 feet on the barometric altimeter. So I'll move this selector over to baro, and I will dial in 298. That's set. And then what I like to do is push this button to hide it. Push it again, it comes back, right? So I hide that so it doesn't distract me on the takeoff. I always turn the flight path vector on. This aircraft, it doesn't seem to work until I don't know if it doesn't work till you're airborne or something like that. In the real aircraft, it would typically come on. Altimeter is already set, and we're in the map display. That's what I want. 10-mile range is usually what I use for takeoff, and whatever other settings you want to put up. It's pretty good weather out today, so for fun, I might just use the terrain mode. Not necessary, that's for sure. Flight director's on. Initial SID altitude is 5,000 feet, so I'll just set that right now. And have a look at my Toronto map here. Chart shows runway heading is 237 degrees, so that's exactly 180 degrees from where it was set. So I'll wind it around here. 237. If we're going to use 6 left in Montreal, the course is a 057, so I'll just leave that set up for when we get to Montreal. I usually set my max bank angle to 25 as well. It's not real critical. 20 would probably be okay too. It seems a little bit shallow to me, but I always set 25. And moving along here, just checking that all the switches are set properly. Fuel used, we'll reset that. Anti-skid, RTO. The disarm light illuminates and then extinguishes. Flaps are at 0. We got 3 green, no red. And gear handles down. Let me see if I can get rid of that control column. There we go. All the light settings are good. I leave the hydraulic page up just for the pushback, just to verify that my pressure is. I do not have pressure there in the A system when we do push back. And I'm just checking that all the levers are in the correct position. Parking brake is on, lights on, and can't see it in this view, but there we go. Brake pressure is sufficient. And slide back here. We can set our comm radios up. I'm not going to be talking to UTC today. Nav radios, we could set that up for the ILS in Montreal. And ILS 6 left is 109.3. 109.3 and 109.3. We won't be using ADFs. Comm panel I'm not really using, although I will turn the marker beacon off in case we fly by a signal. Don't have to listen to that. The lock fail light is on. I'm going to see if I can close the flight deck door. I believe that selection is over here on the Avatab. Doors. All right. I remember now. So what we can do is turn around. There. Close the door. Couldn't remember how to do that for a moment. And there we go. The door is locked. Alright, so this is showing up here because we're not actually receiving a valid signal for any ILS in the area on that frequency, but we know we're not using it until we get to Montreal anyways. Actually, in fact, this will show up, so what we'll do, this may be a possibility that one of the runways in Toronto could be giving us a bit of a signal. However, we're outside of the reliability area. So what I'm going to do is just flip our the ILS frequency back to the standby. And there you go. That information's all removed from our PFD. I just got a common frequency I would often throw in here would be 108.0, and you can pretty much be assured that nothing in the area is going to be on 108.0. 111.7 seems to work fine as well, but the idea being that we don't have, you know, indications on the PFD that are going to distract us. Alright, I'm going to have a look, see what my, I just have a quick look over my instruments, see if everything looks roughly correct. So I've got runway heading 237, we've set 5,000 feet for our initial altitude. I'm going to need to set V2 in the speed window here, so I'm going to head back down to my FMS. I'm going to select the easiest way I find is you can either hit route, go to the takeoff reference page from there, or you can also, I'll zoom in a bit, you can also select N1 limit, and that gives you the takeoff page in the bottom right corner. So N1 limit, takeoff reference, and V2 is 147, so I'm going to set 147 in my airspeed window, and that seems to be about it. It's good to have a quick look over the takeoff reference page, make sure everything makes sense. Our acceleration altitudes are exactly what we're planning at 1,000 feet, and we can also set up the modes on the MCP. I've been finding waypoints tend to be auto-sequencing on me. I'm going to go ahead and just use, we'll use LNAV because everything is in the FMS. If we do look at our FMS, go to the legs page, it's going to fly 237 to 1,100 feet, and then heading at 245 for vectors. And then, if we look on our map, go to the plan page here, and zoom out a little bit. I've been having an issue where, let me see if this makes things a little bit more clear. Okay, so this is runway 23 right here. We're going to be departing off in this direction, and this magenta line is our heading 245. So this little waypoint here occurs at 1,100 feet, and then the aircraft is going to make a right turn to a heading at 245, which makes sense because this is a heading at 237, this extended center line. So it's going to head off in this direction. I've been having an issue where the aircraft automatically sequences and just turns and starts flying direct to Saver, or direct to the first waypoint. So we'll see how things go once we get airborne. When we get airborne, we'll expect to fly heading at 245. That's what the aircraft would do in real life. In fact, what we can do to assure that is we can go in and we can put a discontinuity in the flight plan. So if we put a discontinuity between this vector and between Saver, then we won't have any issues with the aircraft sequencing itself automatically to Saver, because it's showing 11 nautical miles, so I have a feeling it's just going to send us direct to Saver, even though in the real aircraft it wouldn't do that. It might just be a coding anomaly with this airplane, with Zibo. I mean, it's a pretty impressive setup. Not everything's perfect though. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in just like a bogus VOR here, EYW. Drop it there, and then what I'll do is delete it. So I dropped it on top of Saver, and it dropped Saver down to here. So it says after the vector you want to go to Key West. Okay, but then where do you want to go after that? So if I wanted to go to Saver, I could drop it right here on the discontinuity. But what I'm going to do is delete EYW. My discontinuity stays. I'm going to execute that, and that should prevent any kind of auto sequencing from occurring. So vector 245, and then the FMS is just going to stop. And once we're cleared direct to saver, or maybe we'll get direct seek it from ATC, then we can put that in the top line and sequence the FMS. So LNAV should work for us then. Got the LNAV and VNAV armed. VNAV is going to fly the aircraft at roughly V2 plus 20 knots, give or take, initially, and at 1,000 feet it's going to accelerate. And as we clean up, start retracting our flaps, once the flaps are up, it'll accelerate to 250 knots below 10,000. Alright, so that all looks pretty good. Let's plan our pushback here. We're at gate 135 in Toronto, so we could plan a pushback to be tail east on lane 6. Disconnect here at 6 Charlie.
Alright, Captain, got the directions. Let me know through the menu when you're ready.
And we'll call up our ramp crew here for...
Great news, Captain, your tow's coming.
Alright, so tow's on the way. Normally we do a takeoff briefing. There's our tug. That's some pretty good service there. There's our tug. So if we were working with another crew member, we'd do a takeoff briefing, and basically, we've got our fuel, we've got our performance data, we've got our flight plan, our clearance, all that stuff, so we're ready to go. And we do the before start checklist. So I'm using the Mach 5 Boeing 737 normal checklist.
Alright, looks like the doors and hatches are closed and we're ready to connect.
Alright, so while he's connecting up there, we'll do the before start checklist. So before start checklist, parking brake is set. Verify that with the light on and sufficient pressure. Windows and doors are closed, and we close the flight deck door as well. External power is disconnected. Fuel quantity is checked. We have roughly 5,800 kilos, and 5,700 was required.
Welcome aboard, Captain. Tow's connected, bypass pins inserted. Go ahead and kill the parking brake when you're ready to go.
Alright, so he's all ready to go. We're still working on before start checklist. Fuel quantity is checked. Fuel panel. There's no fuel in the center tank, so just the forward, or just the left and right tank pumps can come on. Hydraulic panel. A pumps off, B pumps on. Fasten belts on. Isolation valve open. APU bleed is on. Pressurization mode is auto. Flight deck door locked. Transponder all the way down here. Okay, I haven't. We don't actually have a clearance, but if we did, we'd have the transponder code in there, and we would go to Alton, and that's the mode C transmission. And airports with surface movement detection equipment can then see you on their screen. So transponder to Alton, and I'll just make a note to modify my checklist. Trims are set. That's 0. And aileron trim would be on the control column. We can just say it's 0'd. and we set our trim based off of the setting in takeoff reference page was 4.86, something like that, 4.86. And anti-collision on. And the before start checklist is complete, so we're ready for our pushback. We can release the park brake.
Here comes the pushback. Light them up.
Alright, so he's saying to light these things up. And there we go. We got, I normally do check this, that we have no pressure on the A system. And 2810's a little bit low, but it's good enough for the B system. So I'll get rid of that page, and I'll put the engine gauges back up there. I'm going to hit start on the. We'll do the full start procedure. So we put the gauges up. Packs off. Number 2, start switch to ground. And we're going to be looking for about 25% on the N2, and then we can move the engine number 2 start lever to the idle detent. There we go. We get fuel flow, EGT, some N1 rotation. Oil pressure is increased. And starter cutout. 2, 4, 6, and 3. So those are normal engine parameters. You can head up here, start the number 1 engine now.
Just about done here. Go ahead and set your parking brake.
Okay, pushback's complete, so we'll set the park brake.
And we're disconnecting the tow. Give me just a moment.
There's 25%. Engine 1 start lever idle detent. We have fuel flow. EGT is increasing. N1. Oil pressure's rising. And disconnect and go to hand signals with the ground crew. Just making sure, you know, the EGT is not going to exceed the start limitation. There's 2, 4, 6, 3. Engine 1's normal, and the starter did cut out.
And we're disconnected. Signal and pin on the left. Take it easy and have a safe flight.
There goes the ramp crew. Alright, so that's complete. We'll do the after start checklist. After start checklist: generators on, probe heat on, wing anti-ice off, engine anti-ice off, hydraulic panel set, packs auto, isolation valve auto, APU bleed off, APU off, flaps okay. So flap indicators right here. I'm going to set flaps to 5 and recall checked. the after start checklist is complete. There, flap indicator shows 5, so should be good. And prior to taxi, we'll select the, what am I looking for here? Taxi light can come on. Have a look out to the right and to the left. Aircraft looks like our ground crew is well clear. So we'll start our taxi. On this airplane, all you need to do is just push the toe brakes, and the parking brake will snap off, and we can start moving. Seems like in this aircraft takes about 30, even 40% thrust to get going. In the real aircraft, it wouldn't necessarily take that much, but once you do get this thing rolling, you can reduce the thrust back. I find if I keep it up around 30% or thereabouts, keeps it moving for me at a reasonable pace. We'd be contacting, we'd have contacted ramp control for taxi, and now we'd be switching over to ground control, and they would probably give us a taxi clearance of taxi Alpha to, pull up my chart here. Alpha Hotel, and hold short of runway 23. And when you are taxiing the airplane, you can check your speed right down here, the ground speed. Gives you a readout directly from the GPS, and that's your most accurate indication. On the straightaways, I just use the rudder pedals to keep straight. They'll steer the aircraft plus or minus 7 degrees, I believe it is, and the tiller will steer the aircraft plus or minus, I believe it's 70 degrees. And I have my tiller mapped to the twist function on my joystick. As we're moving along here, I'm going to want to complete the before takeoff checklist. So the auto brakes, verify we've got RTO, auto throttle, arm, takeoff data is set. We're using LNAV, VNAV, 237 degrees and 5,000 feet. And we got V2 set of 147. Weather radar is off, terrain we have on, and transponder can now go to TARA. There. That's kind of hard to do while staying straight. There's Alpha Delta, and the next taxiway is Hotel. We're doing about 20 knots right now, so I'll slow down for the turn. now requesting takeoff clearance. Once we do get our takeoff clearance, we can throw the rest of the lights on. And taking position on the runway, strobe lights to, or position lights to strobe. Basically ready for takeoff. So for takeoff, I'm just going to advance the thrust levers to about 40%. And we would want to verify that both of them are stabilized. I kind of got a small view there in the corner. I can see the left one. And if they're both the same, all we have to do is hit the toga button. And we get N1, heading select toga. The auto thrust is automatically setting our takeoff power through 80 knots.
80 knots.
Thrust hold indication.
V1. Positive rate.
LNAV. And positive rate. Gear can come up.
400.
N1, VNAV speed. And yeah, it does look like the aircraft wants to turn left on me, so what I'm going to do is engage heading mode.
1000.
Command. And we are accelerating now. We can start retracting flap. Flap 1 selected. And accelerating through 1. Through our flaps 1 maneuver speed. Flaps up. Let's have a look at what the FMS is saying. Legs page. It's got that discontinuity, so it shouldn't have turned left. It should be on a heading of 245 right now. So it does. There's something interesting going on there. So I think it makes sense to do takeoffs in a heading select on the ZBO mod. That way you can control what's going on, unless you have an actual RNAV departure where you need to follow a course.
1000 to go.
There we go. There's 1,000, 4,000 for 5,000. And I'll let it level off here at 5. And the after takeoff checklist. So, after takeoff checklist says engine bleeds on, packs auto, landing gear, 2, off, auto brake, off, flaps are up, the after takeoff checklist is complete. Alright, so let's say ATC gives us a left turn to a heading of, let's see what, say a heading of 130 degrees. Dial up 130, we're already in heading select. Let's increase our map to get some situational awareness, see where we're at. Alright, let's say ATC calls us up, says you're cleared to 12,000. So we'll set 12,000 in the altitude window. We're in VNAV alt because we leveled off at 5,000 feet and the VNAV wanted to keep climbing. So all we need to do is push Alt intervene and it'll continue on its VNAV profile, VNAV speed, N1. So what this means is that the aircraft is pitching to maintain 250 knots and the N1 is set to climb 2. Alright, so maybe ATC's been vectoring us around traffic. They had us level off. Possibly there was traffic at 6,000, you could say. So once they get us clear of other conflicting air traffic, maybe they'll send us direct to Seekit. So there's Seekit off our left. There's Seekit on our FMS. If we want to go direct, all we have to do is select Seekit. Okay, we got an insufficient fuel message. I'm just going to clear that for now. So we have Seekit in the scratch pad. We'll select it to the top line, L1. And let me see if we zoom in on the map. See the dotted line kind of points towards Seekit. So we'll execute that. And we'll put the lateral mode to LNAV, and the aircraft is going to turn and it's going to head over to Seekit. Turn the heading bug as well. And we're on our way. And we'll say ATC gives us, you're generous today, give us a clearance directly up to our cruise altitude. So they clear us up to 290. We'll set 290 in the altitude window. We're in N1 VNAV speed and LNAV's engaged. So basically we're on our way. Through 10,000 the aircraft accelerates to 286. Just like what we looked at earlier in the climb reference page. Oh, I think I kicked the rudder pedals there a little bit. And it's a nice day outside. A little bit loud, apologize for that. So through 10,000, we're now through 12.5, but through 10, what we would normally do is come up, turn the lights off. I actually leave these on till 18, not a big deal. You can just turn them all off though. I'll just turn them all off while I'm up here. And lights and the belts. If it's smooth, we can go belts auto, and the seatbelt sign is will show off in the back. If there was any weather out there, we'd put on the weather radar and have a look at that. There's really nothing out there. It's a nice day, even though it is minus 1, it's a nice day outside. Nice day for flying. Top of climb is coming up ahead. We can have a look at our, well, it says here on our climb page at 1831 Zulu is when we're going to reach top of climb. Top of climb is at 290. We'll be there at 1831, and that's 26 miles in front of us. So 1831, time is now 1828, so we'll be at our cruising altitude in just another 3 minutes. And what I should have did was on the before takeoff, when you do takeoff data, one of the things you can do is declutter the engine gauges, and then that just keeps things, gets any non-essential information out of your way. And if an engine tolerance does get exceeded, it'll automatically, the gauge will automatically pop up on those displays. Through 18,000 now, so we'll put standard on the altimeters. Our standard set on all three. And let's have another look at our routing here. After dead key, it's going to be Sainin, then Miglo, and then top of descent is out here at about 60 miles, so it's not that far away. We'll be coming up on that fairly quick. So what we can do, we can start getting a little bit ready for Montreal. We can go to our ACARS and request an ATIS from Montreal, see what's going on there. Send that. Gross weight is 65.1 right now, so we can even just use, we can use 65, let's use 64.9. 64.9, so if I put that, we should see the flaps 30 reference speed drop by about 1 knot. No, maybe not. It's okay though. We can set, let's see, it's 64. So if we're roughly 64 tons for landing, our flaps 30 VREF is going to be 147. So double punch that key, and that sets flaps 30 and a speed of 147. And let's have a quick look at our PFD. There it is. Flaps 30, speed of 147 is our landing reference speed. We can also put up our minimum altitude. Our decision altitude of 298 feet on the barometric altimeter. And we can notice we have full climb thrust now. Earlier we had climb 2, and eventually once you reach a certain altitude, the aircraft just goes to full climb power because it needs that power to get up to the higher altitudes. Climb 2 just won't cut it to get you all the way up to, for example, up in the 30s or even up to the upper 20s probably. There's our terrain display here. You can see there's really no high terrain. The highest terrain in the area that our map is set to is that top number, which is 2,400 feet, and the lowest terrain in the area is 800 feet. Also, put in our ILS frequencies now. I'm going to have a quick look at the legs page as well, our arrival. So I'm having a look at the arrival chart into Montreal here. and it's saying we got to be at Rideau 330 or below. Rideau is we're not even going above 290 on this flight, so that's not an issue. Landing 6 left at Epmont, we have to be 16,000 or below. Let's see. Sorry, that's at Habs. Habs I'm looking at. Habs. Yeah, there we go. Habs is at 9,000 or below. And I guess Epmont, with my database being a little bit not current, we'll use, we'll say Kavsu. I'll put an altitude of, let's just say there was a restriction by Kavsu to be at an altitude of 16,000 feet or below. You can see the aircraft is planning to be crossing there at 14,920 anyways, but to be sure, because things can change, if there was a crossing restriction there to be 16 or below, I just set it in like that. 16,000 would it be?
1,000 to go.
Execute that. 1,000 feet to go. So 280 for 290, and we should level off. Once we do level off, it should go into VNAV path. The Boeing 737 cruises in VNAV path. There we go. VNAV path, FMC speed. So the aircraft is going to pitch to maintain the VNAV path, which is cruising at 290, and the thrust mode is now FMC speed, auto thrust. So the auto thrust is going to set the thrust to maintain 288 knots, which is what's set there, or Mach 761, whichever is higher. Or I guess it's somewhat less in this case, so let's see if we can change that. No. So there we go. We're going to maintain 288 knots. And I guess if we were a little bit higher, it would have went to Mach 761, but down at 290, it's going to remain at 288 knots. Alright, we can have a look now at still our optimum altitude is 28.5, so 290 is really the closest altitude to that for our direction of flight. Here's the winds today at 290, they're 253 at 57 knots. So I'm going to have a look at Sainin on the flight plan that I got from simbrief.com. So Sainin at 280, planned winds based on the flight plan are 248 at 72. 248 at 72, so that's pretty reasonable. I mean, it's not really that far off. It's a pretty good estimate. And you know, upper winds are really just an estimate anyways, because they can't get upper winds at every single point in the world, right? So I'd say that's not too bad at all. Alright, so we should now have, cruising along here, we can see if that ATIS is in that we asked for. ATIS for Montreal. Calm winds. Okay. So runway 06 left will work. And -4 degrees there. Mostly scattered broken cloud, all fairly high, 10 miles of viz. Altimeter 3025, so I'll set the altimeters right now. Pre-select them. So 30. 3025. On the ISFD, what you can do is click the button in the middle, dial up 3025, click it again, and when on the descent through 8,000, all you have to do is just, on the descent through 18 flight level 180, all you have to do is click this button here, and your altimeter will be set. We'll go over to the first officer's side and set that as well. 3025. So it's pre-selected down here through flight level 180. All we have to do is push standard, and the altimeter setting will change to 3025. Wrong button there. Okay. So, to prepare for the arrival into Montreal, we've got the ATIS. We'll then head up to ATIS. We can check this to make sure that there's nothing wrong with the aircraft. If there was a minor fault, this thing may stay illuminated, and we could then see what was, check the lights and see what's wrong, but everything is good here. We'll do a cancel recall, push that, no faults come up. That's so for the auto land system. Although I'll do a manual landing for today. Push the approach push button on the ISFD because we are doing an ILS into Montreal. A little turn there, so I'll just sync up the heading bug. Okay. Once that's complete, so we got the ATIS, we checked the caution lights, we set approach in the ISFD. Now we can head down to the FMS. So, I'll check the init ref page first. I already have 147 knots, flap 30 set, and just realized right now I forgot. After you set the ISFD, set the auto brakes. So I'll use auto brakes 3 for this landing. And we have our flaps 30 and our new ref set. Wind correction +5 is good. Then we can go to our arrive page. If we didn't already, we would select tabs 3, MIG-low and ILS 6 left. We've already done that. Check the routing. Let's see, I think I checked it all the way up to HABs so far. Yeah, HABs 9 or below. And then Zalta, Burpo, that's our glide slope crossing altitude of 1,210 feet. It's on a 3-degree glide path. Runway 6 left in the missed approach is runway heading to 700 feet. And then at 700 feet heading at 358 degrees up to 3,000 feet. At 3,000 feet, proceed direct to the Montreal VOR and hold. That is all in there and correct. Descent. Let's see here. We can go to the forecast page. So descent speed 248, Mach 7.4, basically Mach 7.5 speed, and then transition to 254 knots. That's pretty reasonable. It's not too fast. It's actually quite slow. And I'm going to go to my sim brief flight plan here and put in some descent winds. So I'll do 2-0, 2-0-0, and I'll do 1-0-0. That's enough. That's enough for winds. So in descent, it's showing 250 at 32. That in there, and 10,000 feet to 37 at 20. That gives your VNAV some additional information for planning the descent. I'm not planning on using any anti-ice in the descent, and let's see, ISA deviation, it was -4 there. So in a standard atmosphere, it should be about 15 degrees Celsius, so we could say it's maybe -19 for ISA deviation. -0.25. That's not correct. It should be -4. Nope. -19. 15 degrees Celsius minus -4. Yeah, so it's 19 degrees below standard atmosphere. So I'll execute that. In fact, I could go on my, if I look at my, SimBrief flight plan here, my OFP, it does show ISO deviation is -14 at full flow, which is pretty close, so bit of a gross error check. And we're cruising along here, approaching top of descent, still about 40 miles away. And we could just say for an example, if ATC said maintain 270, and we were further back on our flight, first thing we do when we get a clearance is set 270 in the altitude window. But if we were on a longer flight and we actually wanted to change our cruise altitude to 270, we would set it here first. We would then head down to the cruise page, put 270 in the cruise section, execute that, and there, the FMS automatically descends the aircraft down to flight level 270. And the important thing about changing the cruise altitude in your FMS is that it then gives you a new cruise speed based on your cost index. Although it is the same here, if it was a major altitude change, it would probably change. Also, it changes your it gives you more accurate fuel information for your arrival based on that lower altitude. And if you looked at my FMS OFP tutorial as well, you could head to the operational impacts section of the OFP, and that would tell you how changes in flight level are going to affect your fuel burn, as well as the block time. So let's see, on our flight plan, if we drop down one flight level, it's not going to affect our burn or our time. So it's really going to be insignificant. And that's not surprising on a flight this short. The change in altitude won't really make a huge difference. If we were doing, let's say, Toronto to Los Angeles, having a flight planned out, flying at an altitude 2,000 feet or 4,000 feet below what your flight planned at could have a significantly different, greater fuel burn. So those are some things you can do to check how that is going to affect your flight. And let's see here. I didn't think there were any storms in the forecast, but I see some clouds flashing. Looks like some lightning. Now we are going to descend through a little bit of a cloud layer out there, so what I'm going to do is put the engine ice on, because the total air temperature is -21. So in the descent we will likely need a little bit of engine ice. So we'll just get that on, warm it up. And let's say air traffic control comes on and gives us a descent down to 16,000. So we'll go to the altitude window, we'll set 6,000. Aircraft is going to slow down to 254 knots for the descent. I'm going to select descend now and execute that, because we are in VNAV path level at 270. The aircraft is not which is oddly enough, it started its deceleration. It really wouldn't do that, but I'll execute the descend now. And there we go. The aircraft is going to start its descent at roughly 1,000 feet per minute until it hits the path. And once it hits the path, it will then follow the path down. You'll notice our flight mode enunciator says VNAV path. Basically, the flight mode enunciator will enunciate VNAV path anytime the aircraft is pitching to maintain a profile based on the flight management system. So although it's not actually following the path right now, it's pitching to follow what we've asked it to do through the FMS. And the FMC, the speed is being set by the FMC here, 254 knots, and our auto thrust is going to follow that. So our auto thrust is following whatever speed the FMS is telling it to do. You can see how far below the path we are right here. We are about, basically we're still descending. There we go. So we're starting to get closer and closer to the path. The FMS will always try to plan an idle descent as much as it can. So when we're descending at 1,000 feet per minute, eventually we're going to come up to meet that path. And there's going to be no change on the flight mode enunciator. But once we do intercept the path, the flight management system will then start following that. So we'll watch it come in here. Hit retard and arm on the auto thrust. So the auto thrust has come right back to idle. That's what retard means. And then when it goes to arm, that means we can actually now set whatever we want using the levers. We can manipulate that as much as we want, and it will not affect the auto throttle status. And basically, if the aircraft gets too low, the auto throttles will wake up if it needs to add thrust, if it requires it. Also, if the airspeed gets too fast and the aircraft can no longer maintain the path, which can happen if we planned a really fast descent and maybe the winds were a little bit different than what was planned, the aircraft will then revert to VNAV speed at a certain point prior to going through the high speed limit. Anyways, the VNAV system is very complicated in the Boeing 737, and it's actually quite similar for pretty much all Boeing aircraft. It's a very there's a lot involved in understanding the VNAV, and it takes quite a long time to get a feel for how it really works. But some things to remember: there's really three modes. There's VNAV alt, there's VNAV path, and there's VNAV speed. And the VNAV path, the aircraft is pitching to maintain what you're telling it to do in the FMS. And VNAV speed, the aircraft is pitching to maintain whatever speed is in the FMS. So we have our arrival set up in there. We go to the legs page here. We put in CAPSU at 16 or below. HABS was preset in there at 9,000 feet or below. Typically you'll find that altitude restrictions and airspeed restrictions on arrivals are usually pre-programmed into the FMS, but it's always a good thing to just go in there and double check. And not only does it give you a double check of what the aircraft is planning to do, you're also familiarizing yourself with the arrival procedure as well. And as long as we're on the path, we're going to maintain all these altitude restrictions. Little message came up here called drag required in the on the scratch pad, so I'll clear that. If I can find the clear button here, there we go, clear it. So what it's saying is, look at the airspeed starting to accelerate. We're following this path down. The thrust is already at idle. So it's basically saying, well, you know, it can't really slow down anymore. So it's saying it requires a little bit of extra drag to maintain the profile. Now, if I have a look at, there's really no airspeed restrictions on my arrival in, so as long as we maintain 250 knots below 10,000, really, there's really no issues here. So we can allow the airspeed to speed up a little bit. It's not really going to, shouldn't really come in to affect us at any point here. We may need to pull out a little speed brake to make halves by 9. It's possible we could get above the path once we do slow to 250, so we'll see how it goes. But there's no big rush to do anything right now. A little yellow light came up there. We're just going through 18, flight level 180. So we'll push standard. We'll set standard on all of our instruments. There we go. Standard, or 30.25, 3025, 3025.
1,000 to go.
Okay, and we're approaching 16,000. If we did level at 16, we would get VNAV alt, because the FMS wants to keep going down. Oops, that was on accident, I did that. Let's say ATC clears us down to, let's say 7,000 feet now. So we'll set 7,000 feet in the altitude window, and we'll just let the FMS keep doing what it's doing. We're a little bit fast now. We're about 280 knots. So I think my thrust levers are a little bit maybe need to be calibrated a little bit. So what I'll do is I'll push level change. Level change doesn't really change much. That's another way to get the thrust to go to idle for a descent, is push level change. The aircraft is no longer following the path. It's now pitching to maintain 281 knots. And it's now pitching to maintain 281 knots, and the thrust is still back. What we can do is, if we want to get the descent going a little bit, we can crank up the speed. But we are going to have to be cautious that we don't exceed 250 knots below 10,000. And of course we would be doing our checklist here. We'd want to do the pre-descent checklist prior to commencing our descent. I'm going to go back on the VNAV here. FMC speed, VNAV path, just to make sure the aircraft does respect 250 below 10,000, and the further altitude restrictions that are further along. Drag required. At this point I'd say, yeah, we could probably use a little bit of speed brake, so put some speed brake out. I'll clear that scratch pad message. So pre-descent checklist, pressurization, landing altitude is set, recall, MFD, cancel recall is checked, auto brake is set, approach briefing is completed, landing data. Let's see, we got flaps 30, VREF 147, and our minimums are set there. Also, course bars are set, the ILS frequencies 1093, 1093 are up. There's a little double check if you ever wanted to check the frequency and course. India Uniform Lima, although the proper way would be to reference the approach chart. Oh, notice I'm in control wheel roll here. I accidentally bumped my thrust lever, so I can just push LNAV and get us back into the proper lateral mode. So we can see the speed brakes brought us back down on the profile, so I stowed those. Move my nav display scale here so we can see what's going on, what's coming up. And once we do get within range of the localizer, it should automatically come up here. That's where we're going to be able to. So we've tuned it, and we should be able to identify it with the India Uniform Lima 3-letter code up here with a slash, and it should show 057 degrees further along once we're within range. I think ILSs are typically signals valid within I believe it's 18 nautical miles within plus or minus 10 degrees of the localizer. So pre-descent checklist is complete. The in-range checklist, that's what we're going to do through 10,000. And also through 10,000 we're going to, I guess it's part of the in-range checklist, so we'll throw these lights on. I usually throw these two lights on for an approach clearance, and then once I get a landing clearance I'll throw the taxi light on, and that's just a reminder that I actually have clearance. Put the fasten belts on. So the in-range checklist says fasten belts on, lights on, landing data set. This is usually where I like to try to verify my localizer. My ILS is tuned and identified, but it's not up yet. No big deal. We'll just check it later on. And the altimeters are 30.25 inches set. Alright, we're coming on the arrival here. We're getting close to the approach. And let's say ATC comes on, clears us down to 3,000 feet.
1,000 to go.
Keep turning that the wrong way. So I'll set 3,000 feet in the altitude window. Aircraft's a little bit fast. I'll pull out some speed brakes here. You know what, actually what I'll do is I'll do level change. I'll do level change because there's not really any more profile left to fly per se. We just need to make sure we come in below the glide slope, and also in order for us to intercept it. So I'll set 250 on the speed. We're going to come above the profile, but that should not be too much of a problem because if you look here, just like on the real airplane actually, the ISFD glide slope usually becomes available prior to receiving the glide slope signal on your PFD. So I actually use this in real life quite a bit just to see that where I am in relation to the glide slope, because this is not the VNAV path information. This is the actual glide slope information, because we have selected the approach push button right there. So that's good for some situational awareness. And this little green bar here shows us where we're going to be level at 3,000 feet. So if we maintain 250 knots in flight level change, we should reach, we should be level at 3,000 feet, just a little bit past Zalta. So we may need some speed brakes at some point, but we'll just continue on, see how it goes. You can see we're only 340 feet high, so that can easily be corrected with speed brakes if required. And we are continuing to trend higher, but again, it's pretty small at this point. some point ATC will clear us for the approach. Oh, look at nice weather out there. I'm going to go to the overhead panel here and turn the engine ice off. That will definitely not be required further along in our flight. And Montreal Airport should be out around here somewhere. I don't know if we can see it or not out the window. Maybe I'll have to shift my head over a little bit. It might be up around. Yeah, they were a little bit too far. Still hard to tell. So, while we were doing that, we got the India Uniform Lima is tuned identified with a course 057. And the glide slope's starting to come alive now, so I will put out a little bit of speed brakes to help us get down. I'm also going to dial the speed back a little bit. Bring it back to 240 knots. That's not going to help. Bringing the speed back is going to hold us up higher a little bit as well, but at the end of the day, it's just you know, your altitude plus your speed is your total energy, right? So and we'll this maybe around this point ATC may clear you for the approach via Zalta. So what I'll do is select the approach push button. Also, like we said, clear for the approach. I'll put the runway turn off lights on as a reminder. VOR loc just captured. Single channel. We're going to be doing a single channel approach. Basically, we need to disconnect the autopilots in order to make a landing. And there's the runway right now. Runway's in sight, straight ahead. Runway 06 left in Montreal. And once we land, we'll exit to the right and we'll take Bravo here. I think that's Bravo. And we'll taxi over to a gate and park. I just clicked something. I don't know what it was. Accidentally with my mouse. There's MCP speed and the glide slope. So I'm going to pull full speed brakes out now. Dial the speed back. Right back to up speed. Because it is pretty tough to slow this airplane down on a 3-degree slope sometimes. Once the localizer does capture, we set runway heading on the heading bug, and the missed approach altitude is 3,000 feet. We set that once glide slope captures. And we're
2,500.
Below 250 knots. Here's our placard speeds here. So below 250 we can select flaps 1. I'll put flaps 1 out. And we can go right to flaps 5 when we're below 250, so I'll go right to flaps 5 because we need to start slowing the aircraft down with the flap out. That'll help slow us down. Of course, I got to dial the speed back in order to keep slowing down. The auto thrust, and I will put gear down. We can go to flaps 10. Flaps 15. Flaps 25. And
1,000.
1,000 feet, stabilized, Mr. Perch, altitude set.
Unfortunately, I had some problems trying to disconnect my autopilot and auto throttle due to my new flight control setup. This resulted in a go-around that I elected not to post because it wasn't done very well. The video resumes on the downwind leg after the approach was set up.
We're on a downwind now. I put the approach back into the FMS, and now we're on radar vectors as opposed to going via Zalta through the arrival. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Burpo, place it in the 2 waypoint, and what I'm going to do next is put 057 degrees for an intercept course, and watch what's going to happen. I'll execute that, and that just extends our center line for us. Alright, so we're on the downwind leg. I'm going to select flaps 1 and dial the speed back to about right back to flaps 1 maneuvering speed, and we'll say ATC gives us a left turn, gives us our left base leg, so we'll make the turn. The off-path descent information doesn't work. Often I would use that to just figure out how far I am exactly from the runway and what type of a descent angle I would have from my present position, but this looks like it's going to be pretty much good. Roughly a 10-mile final, maybe a little bit tight. I'll widen us out just a little bit. And yeah, basically, you know, we cover it in future videos, but we did a go-around. After the go-around, you do the after-takeoff checklist, and you could do another pre-descent in range checklist as well, just to make sure everything's done. Pre-descent, pressurization, landing altitude set, recall, MFD cancel, recall was checked. Auto brakes is set. The approach briefing is going to be the same as last time, and landing data, our VREF is now 146 with flaps 30, and our minimums are still set. In range checklist, the fasten belts on, the lights also on, landing data is set, and the altimeters are still set. In range checklist complete. So just the landing checklist to go, and hopefully this will work out better for me this time. We'd also want to do a quick PA to the passengers and everybody know, you know, we were unable to land and on that approach, and we'll be coming around for another landing. So. The approach is going to be conducted via radar vectors this time, so what we will do is we will get a intercept heading, and once we're on a heading to intercept and we're clear for the approach, then all we need to do is push the approach push button, and the approach is basically going to be conducted in the same manner as before. Hopefully this time to a successful landing. So dial the heading now, right about now. Ground speed's 200 knots, so 10% of that is roughly 2 miles. So we should actually be getting about a heading to intercept approximately right now. And, you know, 100 degrees, about a 40-degree intercept is, you know, pretty typical intercept heading. So that makes sense. And if we are cleared for the approach, we'll select the approach push button, and VOR load glide slope is now armed in the background. Maybe I'll even dial over to 90. Another 10 degrees left just to shallow out our intercept angle just a little bit. Glide slope's just coming alive. Localizer's alive. There's the localizer single channel. We'll dial up 057 degree heading. And we'll set flaps 5. Okay, flaps 5 is selected. Dial the speed back to our flaps 5 maneuvering speed. get configured a little bit earlier this time because we've already done a missed approach, so ideally we wouldn't want to have to do another one. You know, we'd be checking our fuel status right now and possibly deciding whether or not we're going to head to our alternate or not. Glide slope's captured, missed approach altitude is set. I'm going to drop flaps 15, set flaps 15 maneuvering speed. So, typically B gear down, flap 15, landing checklist. Let me see if I can arm my speed brakes here, just nudging that a little bit. That should be good. Basically, you're just bringing the speed brake lever back until the speed brake arm light illuminates. Get this
2500.
Kind of snaps into a little detent there. Probably better to do it with the mouse than the lever itself. So what I'm going to do now is select landing flaps. Flaps 30 selected, and we can bug our airspeed back to VREF +5. If it was stronger wind or gusty conditions, maybe we might consider, you know, we could bug really anywhere from VREF +5 to VREF +15. Okay, so the landing checks, the landing gear is down, speed brake is armed, flaps are set, the landing checklist is complete, and we can flip over to tower now, possibly get our landing clearance, and all the lights can come on with the landing clearance. Configured incorrectly, and here's our landing view. I'm going to disconnect everything a bit earlier this time so that we don't end up in the same situation. Yeah, it seems like my disconnect buttons are not working correctly, so I will push the same command button again, and I'll flip that off, and I'll cancel this stuff. There we go. Now we're flying. And I've got
1,000 feet stabilized.
got about
Mr.
500
Burchell,
hours on this
27.
actual aircraft, and you know, from what I can tell so far from flying it in X-Plane 11, is it does handle quite similar to the real life airplane. Okay. Now my thrust is just matching up. So and basically I'm just pitching to stay on the glide slope.
Approaching minimums.
Trying to stay trimmed out as much as possible.
500. Minimums.
Minimums, we're landing. And I'm using my thrust to control the airspeed.
400.
Keeping a close eye on my glide slope and my airspeed as we're coming in. There's no wind,
300.
so I'm not going to need any to correct with any rudder on landing. Dipping below the glide slope there a bit.
200.
Back on it. Aiming for the 1,000-foot markers. Basically, those two big white.
100.
Two big white thing
50.
lines of paint.
40. 30.
20 degrees,
10.
pitch up, thrust idle, and there we go. Nose wheel down, reverse thrust, speed brake lever should come up, and we should have reverse brake indications.
80 knots.
And use the toe brakes to kick the auto brake off. Oh. Clearly not used to how this thing handles on the ground. And for time-saving purposes, I'm just going to take the reverse high-speed exit here. Normally you wouldn't do that in in real life, but active runway here, and we'll carry on with our procedures. I'm just going to stop it here. We'll do the exterior lights. Basically, we're going to turn all these off, leave the taxi light on, and we'll also go from strobe and steady down to steady. The probes can go to off. That's another checklist correction that I'm going to have to make. Wing anti-ice off, engine anti-ice off, flight directors. Come off. Weather radar off. Get my terrain off at this time as well. Auto brake off. Speed brakes down. Flaps up. Stab trim set 5 units, and transponder to standby. And now most of this would be done on the taxi-in, basically by the first officer, but obviously without the assistance of another pilot, it's kind of hard to do that while you're taxiing. So better to just kind of stop and do that. So we'll taxi in. This should be Bravo here. Make a right-hand turn, cross runway 10, and we're going to find a parking spot. Okay, and at some point we're getting close to the ramp area. We're going to want to get the APU up and running. So we'll move that to the start position. Running because when we approach the gate, we'll stop, set the park brake, and we can shut both the engines down, and we can have the APU running so it's powering up our electrical buses. So we're still waiting on the APU to come up. It's not fully powered up yet. Crossing runway 10 here, entering the ramp. Foxtrot, I believe. Let's have a look. APU's up and running. Basically, when the APU generator off bus light illuminates, you know the APU is running. And at that point, we put the APU generator onto the transfer buses. So by flicking those two switches right here, this light extinguishes, these two lights illuminate. This means that the generators are not powering the electrical buses anymore. And that's what we want. As we're approaching the ramp, we want to turn our taxi light off so we don't blind the ramp crew with our bright taxiway light on the nose, and come in and park. I'm just going to park it a hope I don't touch the gate. Okay, that's close enough for me. Actually, let's have a look. We can do a external view here. A little bit off to the right. Oh yeah, we've got lots of room, so I might straighten this thing out a little bit. That's good enough. Alright, so when we're at the gate, what we will do is set the thrust to idle. And park brake on. We look up, we see these two blue lights, meaning the EPUs and the engine generators are not in use. We can shut down the engines, come up to the overhead panel, and turn the fasten belts off. They were already off. Also, anti-collision off, and fuel pumps off. We'll leave one running since the APU is still running. Oh, ground power is available, so we can go on ground power. We can turn our APU off, no longer required, and we can turn all of our fuel pumps off. So and then we'll just do the parking checklist. Parking brake is set, electrical power is set, engine start levers are cut off, fasten belts off, anti-collision off, IRS selectors off. And even if you were going to carry on and do another flight, you would want to turn these off, turn them completely off, give it a good, at least a minute. I think 30 seconds is the bare minimum, and then bring it back to nav and do a realignment, because your IRSs will have drifted, develop some sort of an error throughout the flight. So probe to off. Let's see, yeah, probe heat off, wing anti-ice off, engine anti-ice off, engine hydraulic pumps on, electric hydraulic pumps off, packs. They can stay in auto, or you can turn them off. Isolation valve open, engine bleeds on, APU bleed off. Exterior lights, I'm all done today, so I'll just turn those off. Flight directors off. Weather radar is off. Speed brake down, flaps up. Transponder 1000 standby, or 2000. External power is on, APU off, fuel pumps off, emergency exit lights off, window heat off, external power off, and battery off.
That concludes our video today on the full flight gate-to-gate operations of the Boeing 737 ZYUL mod in X-Plane 11 from Toronto to Montreal. Don't forget to check out the link in the description to download your own Boeing 737 flight sim checklist. I hope you enjoyed it, and very much appreciate if you click the like button, as well as subscribe to the Mach 5 channel on YouTube or the Mach 5 page on Facebook. On the Mach 5 channel or Mach 5 page, you can find all my video tutorials, guides, gameplay, and other reference material to help take your own flight sim experience to the next level. I will be publishing new content in the very near future, so keep an eye out for those, and in the meantime, fly safe. Cheers.